So Rover's a Giga Chad for this, right?
If you really wanted to die, I could have made it quicker for you.
Jokes aside, I have to make this video because I think I can speak for everyone that no one was expecting a story this divisive in the history of Booba, let alone for this, by all expectations, a rather run-of-the-mill patch. I'm sorry, but you can't take one look at that event schedule, look me in the eye, and say that this patch is anything more than a
Listen, you cross-ages cheapskate!
Sorry, not filler patch. It was a reflex. Kinda conditioned to think every other patch is a filler patch. My fault, gangy. That being said, this video isn't about the 2.5 patch as a whole, but just the 2.5 storyline because, oh boy, does it got people's panties tied up in a knot. I haven't seen faction wars like this since Phasalia versus Everyone's on Frolova's side? Okay, let me clarify something. I'm not on either side because, well, this is a story, and I ain't really attached to either side like that. I just like good story, and man, this is a good ass fucking story. The drama, the revelations, the emotional beats, the action, the villain. No, not this guy. This guy sucks. The villain. And my god, something I need to put some emphasis on, the banter. The constant back and forth between Phrolova and Rover was genuinely so entertaining. Phrolova constantly clocking Rover's ass. Rover constantly being sick of Frolova's shit. This is the interaction I wanted to see more of, and man, this should have me instigating throughout the story like no tomorrow. Fuck who's right. Keep arguing and taking shots at each other. This is cinema. But I definitely want to dig a little deeper into why this is almost the best Wuthering Waves story in my opinion. It really is so close to being the best, but of course, it does have some things holding it back, which is to be expected. But I want to focus on the positive because Kuro is really flexing how much better they're becoming at making a compelling story. Phrolova. What is there to say about Phrolova that hasn't already been said? She's beautifully tragic, perfectly flawed, and somehow teeters so heavily on both sides of innocent and weathered. Phrolova is really the star of the show, and she should be. This is her patch. This is the patch that people have been dying for. Because, well, we finally got a playable antagonist. And she remains an antagonist. Thank the Kuro gods. Listen, I wouldn't have cared either way, but I can't lie. I would have been a little disappointed if they did a 180 with her character, but I'm so glad they made Phrolova an understandable but still fundamentally wrong. Yes, she is wrong too. Let's not be too simpy out here. And again, Kuro's storytelling being absolutely incredible as usual at this point. Them slowly rolling out her inner demons, her doubts, her trauma, her motives, all of it was so expertly handled, giving just enough information to have you make theories that could go in multiple directions, misleading you and confusing you. This is how you handle a wildcard character. We always knew Phrolova was an antagonist, but we slowly have been seeing different caveats to her character, muddying that vision of her character that we had, starting all the way back in 1.0, and really throwing us for a loop in 2.4 where she helps us? Phrolova has been someone that we knew just enough about, but not enough to confidently say where she lies. And man, did we get some crazy reveals. Phrolova being half Tacit Discord, being the sole survivor of a lament event, meeting the past version of Rover, her story acting as the introduction to a main baddie that isn't just the Thernotians. Like, hello, I need to see more people talk about this Grand Architect dude. I understand this is probably just like a title for him. We don't know that much, but he's certainly checked off rule number 1 of being a vile villain. Abuse one's emotional trauma as a way to keep them useful to your purpose. We can all agree that that's a dickhead move, right? But the best part of Phrolova is the fact that for the first time we see someone actually combat Rover. Not in literal battle, but in ideology. Let's get one thing straight. Phrolova is wrong. While her intentions may be pure, let's not act like the act of taking diseased people, whether their consciousness is still floating about or whatever, and putting them into tacit discords is wrong and definitely violates some codes in the Geneva Conventions. Fhrolova is a character that is tormented, haunted, and driven by her past. And she knows she's wrong, but she's a character that has been lied to, toyed and prodded at by scientists, ridiculed by those who were once her people and branded as a curse. And in the end, she turns to a stranger, knowing full well that he's no different than the rest, but he offers one thing: hope. It doesn't matter if it's false hope. She already got that from Rover, but this hope was tangible. It was right in front of her face, and it was telling her to join, not telling her another time. It was something she could use to further her motives right now, and that's all that mattered. And you can tell she just does not give a fuck. She doesn't care if the Fraxidus has heinous intentions. She doesn't care if others die. She doesn't care if she dies. She just wants to see her family. And when a character has nothing to lose, it's always fascinating to see what they're willing to do. But you know what she wasn't completely wrong about? Rover. Rover, for the first time, is under heavy scrutiny. Not bullshit scrutiny like being a waifu collector or a Mary Sue, but under actual heat. I've never seen so many people turn on a character so fast. And honestly, I don't blame them. Throughout the story, Fhrolova keeps taking tiny jabs at Rover, and this drives him up the fucking wall. Rover is typically calm, not stoic, but calm and level-headed. From what we've seen, he's just been a good dude. But for the first time, outside of a life or death battle, we got a little edge. We got a little heated. We got a little bit of the darker side to Rover, and oh my god, it's so fun. And to all the people that say he was too mean, he was too angry, he was too this and that, can we not be stupid for a second? Imagine you're forced to work with the person you despise the most, the person you hate with every fiber of your being. And then while you're working, you just get these random jabs from them. It's not fun. And you definitely have no reason to hold back in your words. And let's not forget that Fhrolova has been a thorn in Rover's side since 1.0. So yeah, let's not be completely apathetic here. Fhrolova knows she's a nuisance to Rover. And you know the best part? She is never wrong. There's not a single lie in her words. And that's what pisses Rover off. That's what is making Rover so hostile. Besides the fact that again, he's working with someone that has tried to kill him before. But that's besides the point. When she says lines like,
I forget I'm speaking to someone who chose to wipe their own past.
Or,
Says the one who hasn't witnessed the years, the failures, the countless attempts I've made. What gives you the audacity to pass such judgment?
honestly, this whole exchange is just Fhrolova popping the fuck off on Rover. And she's right about every single thing. Rover lives a life that is unattainable by any other person. He gets to fail and start over with the added bonus of not having to remember his failures. All those people he let down, all those people that counted on him, all those people that have no choice but to remember someone who doesn't exist, while he gets to act like a different person, they have to suffer the consequences of their actions, while Rover gets to do as he pleases. He gave Fhrolova her first strand of hope, gave her a promise, gave her something to chase and look forward to, only to wipe his own memory and forget what bound them together. But Fhrolova doesn't have that option, and unlike Rover, she has to suffer. Now, before we continue, I need to preface this. Rover is still the hero. There's a lot of speculation about, oh, is Rover the bad guy? Answer is no. No, he is not. Not by a long shot. He is still unequivocally the good guy, especially when our point of comparison is the apathetic psychopath Fhrolova over there. He is still martyring himself. He is still putting the weight of the world on his shoulders. He is still the hero of our story. And just like any realistic hero, he makes mistakes. He has low points. He isn't always thinking straight. And it's an amazing subversion of what we've seen from the character. He's always been a reasonable character. But for the first time, we see his stubbornness in a negative light. We see his temperament. We see his rough edges. We finally get to see Rover as a human. Yet, these lines right here highlight something so fascinating. Every single time Rover resets, every single time he wipes his memories, every single time he goes back and tries to be the true hero, he's slowly chipping away at his humanity and becoming something unrelatable, something unfathomable, something inhuman. He says Fhrolova doesn't understand the value of life, but how could someone who's able to start from a clean slate say that as if they understand anymore? How can someone who has an infinite number of tries judge someone who's had to live through eons of suffering and tried every possible way to realize their desires? How can someone who claims to be so human do something that rips away at the very thing that makes someone human? Rover creates bonds, then when they die, he gets to simply forget about it and try again. Or even worse, he knowingly rids himself of it, such as cases of Phrolova. Rover inadvertently, while trying to be the most selfless of all, ends up being more selfish than anyone else in the story. Sure, characters like Shorekeeper and Camellia had tremendous amounts of faith and always seemed to find their way back to Rover. But what about Phrolova? What if there are more Phrolovas? More people that Rover gave hope to, only to have them chasing an impossible dream. And you see this showcased perfectly throughout the story. In every single scene where Phrolova is hesitant, or fallen back, or unable to think clearly, what does the camera pan back to? Rover, slaughtering the tacit discords without a second thought. And even when Phrolova gets killed, Rover, instead of going to check on the person he just skewered, goes for that tear first, rather than the person he knows he led on for a bazillion years and, well, just killed. They perfectly showcase the difference between someone who has only been holding on to their connections with others, as opposed to someone who's been able to throw them away in a moment's notice. You show this cutscene to someone who's never played Wuthering Waves, and ask them, who is the more human character? And that's what I love about this story. For the first time, Wuthering Waves is putting a crack in that perfect image of Rover. Us, the main character, the hero of the story. And it's so fucking engaging. But it also makes so many people upset. Of course, people love their waifus, but I like to think it's a little more than that. See, a lot of gacha games like to make the main MC a blank canvas, a husk for players to insert themselves in, and a character that doesn't really change the narrative in any way. And that simply allows the player to enjoy a story without having any stakes in it. If something bad happens, it's never the player's fault. But by making Rover his own character, instead of just some blank canvas, it not only gives the player a little bit more stake, but it also creates that connection between the player and the MC. Suddenly, Frolova's death is not just something that happened in the story. It's something that the player actively aided in. And people are upset about that. Suddenly, Rover's mistakes, Rover's flaws, they're ours as well. And we all know how difficult it can be to acknowledge our own flaws. Kuro knew this, but I love that they took this risk. The story becomes 10 times more engaging, people become so much more invested, and suddenly people become so much more interested in the story and lore. And you could see the result of this decision being proved on literally every social media timeline, whether it be Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, whatever. 2.5 is a slower patch by nature, and they took this chance to create a story that would engage the community for weeks. 2.5's story is just damn near perfect. Almost. 2.5 is almost perfect. But there's two issues. One of them is a hypothetical, the other is a stinky pile of dog shit. That pile of dog shit is Fenrico. This has to be one of the biggest letdowns of a character in Wuwa, right up there with Zani. That's right, I said it, I'm putting 2 toes down. Zani is boring as fuck. Her counter is kind of cool though. Fenrico is literally just an empty fucking plot device. He is there to give Rover and Phrolova a reason to work together. Nothing more, nothing less. This character had so much hype since 2.0. And how often have we seen him? Maybe in like 2 or 3 scenes. The problem is, all these scenes might as well have been one scene because they all serve the same purpose, which is making you think, hey, this guy is kinda sus. We never have that feeling of escalation, that feeling of going from, hey, this guy is weird, to, yo, this guy tweaking, to, oh shit, this guy is off his fucking rocker. He goes from 0 to 100 so fucking fast. And then bro just dies? He just turns to stone. Are we for real? Thanks, man. This character that had so many people hyped just fucking dies. And you want to know the worst part? Remember when everyone would joke about him being Saturday, HSR Sunday's distant cousin? Bro just ended up having Sunday's plan anyway. He wanted to create a little spot for all of his little Jehovah Witness zombies to remain as one subconsciousness, while he fends off the dark tide. Except bro's a fucking idiot, so he doesn't do that at all and just makes things worse. So, good job, dickhead. And listen, I get there's a connection between him and Phrolova where they just want to preserve the consciousness of people. But man, Fenrico is just a huge letdown for me. We barely see him this patch, and this is the most we see him in a singular patch. So much for an interesting villain. Definitely the weakest point of the story. The hypothetical is more so what I'm worried about. See, in the ending, Phrolova actually dies. I couldn't tell at first, to be honest, because of the Chinese censorship. No, like, seriously, I thought she drowned to death, and I was like, what the fuck, that's how she goes? But she's actually supposed to get stabbed through right here by Rover. But my issue is that Rover kinda doesn't really care? Like, he kinda does. He clearly is happy to see that Phrolova can rest, but I need the story to hold some weight in Rover's storyline. Having someone literally clock his shit for 3 hours straight should really make him wonder about himself, and if he's doing the right thing. It should play a pivotal role in how he handles future situations, and should act as a reference point for his character development. But if we just move on like nothing happened, then, well, 2.5 ends up feeling pointless. And that's not how I want to feel about a story that literally killed off a 1.0 character. Other than that, yeah, 2.5 has an incredible story, damn near the best in terms of character development and lore drops. It shows that Kuro is once again looking to take risks, be bold in their storytelling, and is shifting a focus to the darker narrative that Wuwa has always been promising. And man, is it exciting. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed 2.5 as much as I did, and let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button because it would really help support me, and make sure to hit on my streams. I'll be streaming on Twitch and YouTube. So yeah, 2.5 story, pretty banger. 2.5 the patch, still gonna be mid though.